Hello everybody and welcome back to the Overlap Breakdown channel. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Umir, who's a professional football scout and analyst. And today we're here to analyse Manchester United's striker options. Okay, welcome back to the channel once again and good morning. Today we're going to be having a look at sort of the centre forwards that Manchester United have been most concretely linked to in the transfer window so far. And we've got 4 different strikers and we're going to break them down one by one and basically go through them all. One we've already analysed on the channel, so if you want more in-depth research on that player, then go take a look at the video when we mention it. But I want to just kick this off by saying that Manchester United need a number 9 this summer, and I think the options are now dwindling in terms of sort of Ekitike, Gyökeres, both gone. And it looks that Manchester United are going to sign one, definitely, but the problem is... Which one? And I think Fabrizio Romano actually said Manchester United 100% will sign a centre forward this summer, which is quite a crazy statement in my opinion, because we've still got 2 centre forwards, whether or not you want to class Xerxes as one, in the ranks, and are
the big money.
Big money signings.
Well,
yeah. So I am going to start this off by, we'll both go into detail on this, but can we start off by just saying, what does a Manchester United centre-forward look like under Ruben Amorim's leadership?
Yeah, look, it depends on... So there's 2 kind of avenues to this. One, where are United at the moment? Yeah. And where does an Amorim side want to be ideally? And I think there are 2 different answers, which is why it's difficult. You need a player who's versatile and I think who can try and do both things. I think if you look at the sporting side under Amorim, Gyökeres was obviously the number 9 who was so impressive there. Yeah. And he kind of ticked a lot of the boxes for perhaps an Amorim side towards the latter part of the project when it was a little bit more established and a little bit more successful. Now, Amorim wants his teams to pen opposition in and be a little bit more strong in attacking the box in these small spaces. I think as far as it goes now, and off of the brief pre-season games that we've seen, they're still in line with what we saw at the end of last season. Yeah. And that's a lot of conceding possession. They went 5-2-3 against Leeds United, and Leeds dominated the ball, which you wouldn't expect from a Manchester United side. And I know it's only pre-season, but again,
it still happened.
It still happened. And you need your front 3 players now in that situation to make the ball stick, to carry the ball upfield. If they're not directly carrying the ball themselves, which is what we mentioned, perhaps Ekitike would have done, then can your number 9, once they've made it stick, find your wide players or your inside forwards running in behind through good progressive passing quality. Yeah. Once they've carried the ball up, can they take shots and make things happen out of very little themselves, or can they establish territory in these areas to then allow the team to join them? That's sort of like immediate sort of needs for this Manchester United side. Yeah. Later on, under an Amorim side, do you have guys who can attack the box really well, make things happen when you've got your wing backs and your inside number 10s, who are then creating for a player in the box? Can they hold off opposition in these areas to allow space at the edge of the box as well? So box number 9, but I think that's less of a pressing issue when you've got good ball strikers in Cunha and Mbeumo. Yeah. Immediately, you need players who can kind of take you from this situation up the pitch and get the best out of your number 10s who have been your big money signings.
Yeah, no, perfect. Literally, I don't even think I'm going to answer that, because you were talking about the Gyökeres thing, and then I was like, oh yeah, but we're not doing that. And then you went, oh yeah, but you're not doing that. So I was like, oh no, no, yeah, it's like, he's got it spot on. But yeah, I think
it's almost like I'm a United fan. Imagine.
But one of the most probably important aspects that you just spoke about, I'll just reiterate, is sort of, you went from getting us from this situation to that situation down at the other end of the pitch. And so getting us to that end of the pitch from sort of the deep build-up, and it does feel like Manchester United under Amorim towards the back end became more of a counter-attacking team against the average opposition. I think when teams sort of sit off you see more of the end product of Amorim's sort of product, which is against Aston Villa, we sort of seen this situation where Bruno Fernandes was moving into this 10 position, got 2 wide, 10s either side, and there's only 1 sitting midfielder with the wing backs, very aggressive. Yep. But I think what you just mentioned there, having someone who can sort of be an out ball, you can hit him with balls, he can take you from this position to that position and can basically dominate the channels as Gyökeres did and does for Sporting. Yeah, that is very key to mention. If you're enjoying the video and want more tactical analysis and podcasts, please press the subscribe button below and hit the bell to enable post notifications. Okay, so moving on into the first striker that we're going to analyse in this piece, and that is Benjamin Sesko of RB Leipzig. And we made an entire piece on Sesko potentially going to Arsenal, but it looks like they're going to go get Victor Gyökeres now. So we are going to analyse Benjamin Sesko. We're going to do it very briefly, and I'm gonna do that by basically saying that, in my opinion, I think he's one of the best striker prospects in Europe, full stop. I think he's a sensational athlete. I think he strikes the ball really well. I think he's got all the tools to sort of elevate and dominate. But the problem is, I would probably say that would happen at a elite club, a club that has a sustainable sort of environment to create chances consistently for the number 9, a team that's already in the final third who aren't really facing the problems. I'm probably looking at, teams like Arsenal still, City, obviously not saying they should sign him, but City, sort of style. Chelsea potentially, sort of these number 9s who are getting service quite a lot throughout the games, whether it's transitions and stuff. And the way I look at Manchester United right now is we don't create enough chances for the centre forward, and whether or not that's down to the centre forward entirely, which obviously it might be, because Rasmus Højlund gets next to no shots on goal. But either way, Manchester United don't create good enough chances for either of the strikers, no matter who plays up front. So you can definitely say that it's not a good enough system to move into and to sort of elevate your talent to that level and to deliver. And I don't think he's a reliable 1v1 finisher, and that means if you're not creating enough chances, you're not getting enough 1v1s, you're not getting enough chances, I don't think it'll gel straight away.
Okay.
But I think he's an absolutely sensational centre forward. And I basically tweeted this the other day. I said, I have to stay consistent with what I've said about Sesko, which is that he is, for me, a world-class potential striker. And I think he could be one of the best strikers in the world. The problem is I just don't see a young centre forward for a lot of money, again, moving from Leipzig to Manchester United. I just think it's really hard to do now. But if Manchester United signed him, I'd be happy, because it's a great centre forward, it's a great talent, and you need good players on the pitch to win football matches, and he would be that. But yeah, if you do want to go see more about Benjamin Sesko, we do have a full piece analysing him moving to potentially Arsenal, but also his general overview as a player. So I'm going to move on into the second striker now, and I'm going to throw this onto Umir. And we're going to speak today about Nicolas Jackson of Chelsea, who's been linked to Manchester United quite heavily recently. And obviously, Chelsea have gone and signed Liam Delap and João Pedro, and it looks like both of them players are going to sort of be the number 9s or centre forwards going into next season. So can you explain to me potentially why Nicolas Jackson could be a good option for Manchester United?
Yeah, look, I'm a big fan of Nicolas Jackson. And prior to these links, I think when Chelsea were linked to João Pedro, I said, if Chelsea are signing Delap and João Pedro, then it would be smart for a team like Manchester United to try and get Nicolas Jackson. And I got berated for it online. But I think that's because people don't understand sort of the qualities that Nicolas Jackson can give you. I think generally Chelsea fans and fans around the league have probably got this idea about Nicolas Jackson being this patchy and poor finisher, which I don't think is necessarily incorrect. I do think he is a bit light on his ball striking quality, and when he gets in 1v1 situations, he has the opportunity to maybe put it away, and he fumbles it on occasions. Now, irrespective of that, I think he's a top level player, and especially for this Manchester United time, which is why I recommended it prior to any links sort of being formed anyway. And I think that the key behind all of this is sort of your two players in and around them. You've spent huge money on two of the best sort of XG over performers in the league. They're great ball strikers from distance. They can attack these big spaces well, but they're good against blocks as well. They play very quickly. We've seen in the preseason as well, but also through Wolves, Cunha likes to play sort of at this quite kind of quick one pace that we've spoken about in the past as well. So we know that these things are true of these two players. How can you get the best out of these two players? Now, for me, Nicolas Jackson, who prior to joining Chelsea often played a lot of his game time towards the wings, can very easily flow into these areas here and here. And if he does move out into these areas, then I think Cunha moving into the central areas to get a shot away will be brilliant for trying to maximise the goals that you're getting from these sort of players. On top of that, when we've seen Chelsea, especially under Pochettino, I think they played primarily on a more transitional quality. And at their best, they were really strong in doing so. And I thought that Jackson had a really great chemistry with Cole Palmer. Often the ball was fizzed in, and obviously all of these players would be a lot higher. But on the halfway line, he'd receive pressure on his back, and he'd find that separation in dropping deep and then finding his players in these areas. Now that can be, again, an Mbeumo in this situation, or it can be one of your central midfielders out here. Either way, it allows for runners to get up whilst he's getting you territory higher up the pitch from these areas. Those are the reasons why I think he gets the best out of these other players. Not to mention, in general, you want your attackers to be scoring 20 goals. I know that's true. But if you think about Jackson and people are like, look, he doesn't score enough goals. I think you've got the stats in general. It'd probably be helpful to...
So, Nicolas Jackson has got, obviously, 30 games played this season, 10 goals, 5 assists. But in all competitions at Chelsea in the past 2 seasons, he actually has 41 goal involvements, which is obviously an average of above 20 goal involvements a season, all competitions. If we're looking at centre-forwards like Joshua Zirkzee and Rasmus Højlund, he's an immediate upgrade even on the output, which isn't probably his forte, his unique selling point. And I think just in general for Nicolas Jackson, this was the season per night in his very young career, albeit, where he's had the least touches per 90. So he's even getting less touches of the ball, but he's still delivering on 10 goals, 5 assists, and he's only played no penalties, and he's only played 25 90s. So he's only completed 25 90s, and he's still got 15 GA in the Premier League for that with no pens. And yeah, I think it's a very smart option. I would probably look to loan him rather than buy him. I think Chelsea would probably want a bit of steep money for him. But I think as a loan, to test the waters and to see how he'd fit in. I absolutely love sort of the points about him being an outball. I think he's got stronger hold-up play than maybe some of the other strikers in the list. I think he's got this sort of dribbling quality to drop in. I love the idea of having Cunha and Mbeumo, kind of spin into these spaces a bit more central. I think Cunha plays better closer to goal. I think Brian Mbeumo made this signature move, which you mentioned a gazillion times, which is sort of spinning behind. I think he would help him build up. He could drop in here, pick up the ball, spin. Rasmus Højlund likes to do a lot of this channel running, but he's not exactly clean on the eye, doesn't make it work. Nicolas Jackson can. And I think we mentioned in sort of the Isaac Ekitike piece that Liverpool were trying to get a creative idea of a number 9 because they had goal scorers elsewhere. United can sort of replicate that environment by having 2 goal scorers either side of a facilitator like number 9. A bit like Zirkzee, but I think Jackson's a bit more light on his feet, a bit more nippy, and can actually lead a transition.
And he can push the defensive line back with more.
He's got decent movement. It is just the finishing, and I'm not doubting that Chelsea are in a very different position to Manchester United. Chelsea need a goal scorer because they create the chances. Manchester United need to get up the pitch to create the goals.
And Jackson actually he got them up the league. Let's not forget that. He got them up, and I think he's a very solid player for a team that wants to challenge for top 4. Just a last point before we move on to the next player. I think a lot of United fans will be like, "But I want my number 9 to score." Functionally, if you look at this team, this player would be playing more like your creative midfielder, and these 2 players would be playing like your striker. If you're thinking about roles rather than positions outright. And if your creative attacker or your creative midfielder is somebody who can still score 10 goals a season, and these 2 players score 15 to 20, you're laughing. That's a brilliant front 3.
If you're enjoying the video and want more tactical analysis and podcasts, please press the subscribe button below and hit the bell to enable post notifications. We are going to move on into the next number 9, which is Mateta from Crystal Palace. And we actually did quite a bit of research on Mateta before we did this video. So the season just gone, he got 14 goals, 2 assists. And the season before that, he got 16 goals, 5 assists. Very respectable sort of output for a Crystal Palace striker, no disrespect. But quite interestingly, I've got some data here. So obviously he's 28 years old. But this is obviously his lowest touches per 90 in football since he's broke through. This is his lowest touches that he's getting per 90. But he's also got the most progressive passes and the most progressive carries per 90 in his entire career. So we're talking about someone who's very efficient with the touches. So he's not getting much touches at all. It's also the lowest he's had in the attacking third and the penalty area. So he's getting, as we say about Rasmus Højlund sometimes, he's getting no service, he's getting no balls into him, and he's still got more touches than Højlund per 90. But he's this player he's scoring goals from no touches and from barely any shots. I think we looked before at his shots. I think he's got 2.3 shots per 90, which is behind
Eze. Shooting more than him, isn't he?
Eze and Sarr is a bit closer to him, but he's not above him. But I think he's on like 1.9, so he's not very much a touch-heavy, sort of Nicolas Jackson type as we're talking,
Yeah,
about having loads of
Cunha
touches.
and Bemo who should take loads of shots themselves.
So he's a very different dynamic of player, and we're looking at sort of a pillar up front who can make it stick. And I think we mentioned before some of his ability to sort of actually create transitions. Like he's not a very nippy footballer, but some of his footwork, some of his
feet
passing,
are lightning quick.
He's incredible, and he's really strange because I was going into it like sort of the analysis, and even throughout the season, I was waiting for these like big headers and flick-ons and stuff, but no, it's like make it stick, get it down, take it past one player, and then thread a through ball. And I'm like, well, he's playing like Jackson, but he's a lot bigger, and I think he's quite. We were looking at some of his goals. He's quite fast, but his strength, his ability to get the arm across. His
intelligence strength is always the arm or how he gets his body in the way.
If he's like 1v1 with a player, he just brushes the player past him, he gets into the penalty area. Honestly, just go watch some of his goals. He's got some of the best two-footed finishing. We were actually having a conversation before when we didn't know if he was right or left-footed, just going off his shots and his goals. We were a bit concerned as to how good he was on both feet. Sort of a variety of goals sort of spinning. A lot of his goals actually coming down sort of the left side of the box or the back post if I'm looking at it from my perspective.
Think about Mbumo as well. I think one quality that he gives more than perhaps the others on the list is he can still do it in the box as well.
Yes.
And like you mentioned, these areas are where he's getting a lot of those in-box chances.
Shots,
I think who creates for that? I think an Amad Diallo, Adalo, perhaps a Mazraoui in these areas because Amrim wants his wide centre backs to push forward. Ahmed Mbumo, Mazraoui. Those in-swinging crosses or these sort of more cutback situations into these areas, and to have somebody who knows how to lurk at the back post, vacating that central area perhaps for, again, someone like a Cunha, which is what Eze often does. He picks up these positions, whereas Mateta goes to the back post. That's something that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. I think he's a very interesting centre forward. I weren't really expecting him to play how he plays when I was watching him for like up close for the first time. I was expecting a bit more of like a big man, but he's very technical with his feet. And I think 28 years old, sort of Premier League proven, coming off 2 seasons. I don't really know what the fee would be rumoured. I reckon about £30 million. But if I'm like looking at Manchester United, I actually said this the other day online, but I was talking like, I don't know how, because I've never been in this position as a football fan, how you go from being a fallen giant at 15th with no European football to shooting. Do you shoot for Europe straight away? So do you just buy the best striker available? Or do you buy someone who's younger like Sesko? Or do you buy someone like Mateta who can hold it down for 2 years and then maybe Chido, depending on the development plan, can he come through?
Yeah.
And I was a bit like, I don't know where Manchester United are going to go because we've obviously got Sesko who could come in for €80 million and try and explode here. You've got Mateta as maybe a short-term stopgap. The final option's also a stopgap potentially.
Yeah. I
just didn't really know where United or where we should turn. Like, he just in terms of being sensible in the market. But I think Jackson, Mateta, like I would prefer maybe a stopgap.
Yeah.
I don't know why I think that. I just think we've got so many more areas on the
I was
pitch
going to say, I think if you don't spend 80 or 90 million on the forward, I think the other 2 players are probably better stylistic fits anyway, and we'll go to the 4th player that we'll mention. But I think you need to invest in a central midfielder.
Yeah,
and if you can get one of each, especially if the difference between perhaps the Sesko, if you think Sesko's better, isn't that great, then I think that's the most sensible thing to do.
Yeah, because it just looks like we're going to play Bruno Fernandes in these 2 with Mbumo and Cunha here, which is like fair enough, whatever. But this player has got to be sensational.
It's a 38-game season.
Yeah, it's a 38-game season, and there is that. Casemiro, could he run it back? I don't know. Right?
He was good at the tail end.
He was good, but it's like
38 games.
Have I got my faith in him?
Yeah.
Have I got my faith in him to do that? And it's like I don't know how many midfielders in the entire of Europe can do that. And if there is one available, it's going to cost a lot of money. And like I know Balaba's like sort of the trendy one that gets thrown about.
Yeah.
If we can save on a striker by getting a Mateta or a Jackson, the next option which we'll go on to, but have an £80 million midfielder who is that profile, I would 10 times rather do that.
100% agree.
So, yeah. We're going to move on into the final striker of the video, which is Ollie Watkins. And coming off last season, he got 16 goals and 8 assists, obviously 24 goal and assist season after 38 games. And the season before that, he got 19 goals, 13 assists in 37 games. His GA per 90 this season was 3rd best for any player in the Premier League, and it was 0.83. And Yeah, I want to throw this onto you because I think the main concern about sort of signing Ollie Watkins is the age, the potential burnout. But he's played 38 games last season, the Prem 37 games the season before, and I know the output was a little bit down, but Aston Villa were a sort of a lesser team sort of going into this season. But could you maybe make an argument for Ollie Watkins being the best bang for your buck in terms of Premier League proven, or do you think there's just other options out there? For me, I don't know where I sit on Ollie Watkins simply just because of the age and the fee.
Yeah, I think oftentimes probably age gets a little bit overstated in some of these arguments. I will say Mateta, for example, just turned 28.
Yeah,
everyone's talking about him sort of being the end of his career and throughout a couple of seasons. I think a 28-year-old can play 4 or 5 seasons. In the Premier League, if they're not the most physical player who relies on running in behind all of the time. I mean, even then, we saw Jamie Vardy excel, and did a job for Leicester way into his 30s as well. So with Ollie Watkins, I suppose my question is, I'm really confused as to why he is being sold, or he seems to be on the market to be sold. He's put up brilliant numbers in goals and assists, and he's played in this transitional manner. I think his best zones are sort of these areas where he then shoots across goal. So are there players who can kind of play that pass for him?
Probably stylistically, that's probably one of the worser options for the market for United.
I was going to say, and
in terms of where he excels.
Yeah, but I think his transitional quality is top. So if you can find him running in behind, he's a very reliable scorer in that sense. I think as a pure footballer, he's probably he might be he's one of the best out of that list.
Yeah, in terms of
just
like
where he
his
is at the
actual
level and quality and how he plays,
how people think about it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think because he's England international level footballer, he's put up like ridiculous numbers last season. Yeah, Champions League quality footballer. So I think for all of those reasons, I don't think you turn your nose up at an Ollie Watkins. And I think you need to have good passing quality to get the best out of Ollie Watkins. I know he's got a lot of assists, but his assists are more sort of finding players nearby him and things like that. So look, I certainly think he's a top level player. I would again go for him over Sesko at the moment and try and reinvest somewhere else because of how good of an individual he is. But for me, I would prefer one of the other two. I think I've said Jackson in the past, but Mateta for me is the most well-rounded, ready to plug and play number 9 for this Manchester United side, especially given the way he knows how to play in a 3-4-2-1 in the Premier League as well.
Would you say, so you think Mateta is probably the best bang for your buck if you had to choose out the 4?
I would go Mateta because he can do a bit of everything. He can bring you up the pitch. He's decent in poaching at the back post. He's 28 years old. He's come off 2 great seasons. He's not got a million minutes in his legs. And at 28, you can still get 4 seasons out of him, in my opinion, at the top level.
I think he's one of the cheaper. Well, I think he's actually the cheapest on the list in terms of the reported fee, which is crazy. I think he's been consistent in the Premier League for sort of 2 seasons. He's always played with the 2 runners off him. You know, looking at Sarr and Eze, very similar to sort of a Cunha and Burmo kind of dynamic. I know they're a bit different players, but in terms of like the runners in behind off of him, I'm really leaning towards sort of Mateta because I think he's very different to the other 2 strikers we have as well, which means you probably get a different sort of outcome of him playing there. I really like the idea of the Jackson. I just think, I don't know, I think it's because Cunha and Burmo are just so like goal heavy, runners in behind who, know where the back of the net is, the culture enough to score there. Like, I don't mind going for a Jackson, especially if it's on loan. You
and
can
the fluidity between all 3, because I don't think, as brilliant as Mateta is, like Mateta, would he go into these areas rather than Burmo come in here? Like perhaps less so. Whereas the Jackson would free up even more fluid front 3.
Yeah. I mean, I know Chelsea fans are going to be like, oh, is this how far we've fallen? No, it is. No, it is. I know that, right? 10 goals and 5 assists in the Premier League. Like, that would have been a good return for United last season. 100%. Like, and I know it's the levels are different, but that is the reality of the situation we're in. But I think the wider package of what he does, sort of the players he's playing around potentially, I do see him as a bit of a Xerxes player, but he just leads transitions better. He's a lot lighter on his feet. He's got a lot. Yeah, he likes the box. Like, I think his movement's probably a bit better off the shoulder. He's nippy. He's well faster than Xerxes. But what are the development plans looking like for Chido? How's Xerxes developed even more? How's Højlund getting on? Is he still here? Do we need to trigger the buy option? We might not have to. The manager might not be here. We might want a different set of forward. Anything could happen. Literally anything could happen. So I think I think I'd look at the Jackson one more than the others, but I think probably my second one would probably be Mateta.
I think those are the most sensible.
Yeah,
top two,
I just think
opinion.
to reinvest elsewhere in the team, to put money behind the midfield, the wing backs.
I wouldn't even go goalkeeper.
Yeah, goalkeeper, anything. It gives you so much more flexibility in the market to do other things with funds. And I really like Sesko. I must have to reiterate it. Like, I absolutely.
Yeah, I know. That's why I
love him as a player.
I think you think he's one of the.
Honestly, I think he's up there. Is like, but I think the team he'd have to play for, like, you'd have to play for like a Madrid.
Yeah.
Like, you have to play for like Madrid, a Barca, City, like Arsenal. Like, you have to play for a big team who just are ready and doing it. You know what I mean? Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy, please don't forget to like, comment and follow the channel, and let us know who you would sign up for Manchester United this summer. And we're back next week for some more analysis. Thank you.